Alright, what's happening? Alright, today we're going to look at this thing here. This is a programmable logic controller. Okay, here it is. I'm going to try to look in there. There we go. Got a lot of electro gadgetry going on. A lot of label stuff here. Okay, got some cooling fins here, these things right there. Looks like from the side. A lot of circuitry looking things. And in the back, just looks like that. Okay. Alright. Let's go over some of this. Let's decipher this. Alright. We got Allen Bradley, by the way, is owned by Rockwell. Okay. You can look that up. Owned by Rockwell. Let's go over some of this gobbledygook, whatever you want to call it, hieroglyphics. Again, this is a Programmable Logic Controller, SLC here. That is a small logic controller, 500. Small logic controller, 500. That's under the umbrella of the Programmable Logic Controller technology. Output module. How do we know? The O. Okay, this here, that's the output module of the SLC 500 family. Okay, there is an IA16. The I would be input. Okay, there's your category here, 1746. Output. Okay, not input, output, and that's confirmed here. Serial C, that's a revision number. There's a B, C, D, and so on. That's a revision number. A lot of times the B can be swapped out with a C. It's just a revision, and that has to do with how these gizmos talk to each other and how they work. A lot of times you can do an upgrade, pop out the B, as long as you power down everything. There's parameters for that. You power it down. There's ways to power down, and there's a number of items to power down. And then you pop the B out, pop the C in, same with the C to D. Your Win21, that's your license key, manufacture date. Oh, and by the way, this particular programmable logic controller was discontinued in March of 24. Okay, March of 24. This whole thing here, these were fielded in 1991. This particular one is right here, manufactured in 1996, right there. See? 1996. This is my professor's laser right here. Not really, but yeah. There's my pointy thing. Tells us a little bit about this, okay? 1746, output module. Now, here we got R with a circle around it, registered trademark. Registered trademark. That means it's registered with the USPTO, the United States Patent and Trade Office. I happen to own a trademark of my own. And you can look up someone's patent, copyright, or trademark on the associated websites that are out there on the internet. Registered trademark, this here, this thing, CSA, registered trademark. Okay, UL, that is the Underwriters Laboratory. They do things related to safety and performance standards. The Underwriters Laboratory, they test for things like shock. Bzzz. Okay, you don't want to get shocked. They check for that. This is their counterpart in Canada. This is this big C here, which is most of a circle on the outside. Canada Standards Association. Okay, they are the counterpart in Canada to the Underwriters Laboratory, and then here, conformity, European. So European conformity, they're the same thing. So Underwriter Laboratories here in the U.S., their equivalent or counterpart in Canada, and their counterpart in the European Union, and that's about 30 countries, approximately 30 countries. They do things, they check for safety and performance, testing, and excellence. Okay, make sure things don't shock you, and they have certain things that they check and test. And we'll get back to that too here in a moment. That's where we're headed next. Listed, okay, IND, CONT, EQ. All right, these are listed industrial control equipment for hazardous locations. A196. What does it mean? Hazardous locations. Okay, that's area H. These two here. These two abbreviations. Areas where fire or explosion hazards may exist. That's what that means. Okay. So these guys, the Underwriter Laboratories, have listed this industrial control equipment for hazardous locations. Okay, yeah, where fire, and that means where fire or explosion hazards may exist. A196 is just a file number. Okay, that's the United Laboratory or Underwriters Laboratory file number that corresponds to the equipment category for industrial control equipment in hazardous locations. Okay, so this A196 here, because this is in the United States, this A196 is a file that you would look in if you were these guys here. Okay, and these other two entities probably use something similar. It's just not listed here because this is in the United States. Okay, put that under the microscope, and we have Class 1, Groups A, B, C, D, and Division 2. Okay, that expounds on what's above it, as I indicated. Class 1. All right, that's flammable gas. Okay, Class 1, flammable gas. Now, Division 2, skip back over here, that is a hazardous atmosphere only expected in abnormal situations like equipment failure. That's just one example. You can look that up, Division 2. So this is all related to safety here. Groups now. So Division 2, hazardous atmosphere. Hazardous atmosphere only expected in abnormal situations like equipment failure. Let's go back to Class 1, flammable gas. Okay, Groups A, B, C, and D fall under the Class 1 umbrella of flammable gases. Group A, you have gases like acetylene. Okay. B is hydrogen, C, ethylene. There's a lot more in C. You can look that up. Ethylene, I'm just picking ones that you might have heard of before. And D is your acetone, gas, and propane. You're going to have a lot of that. Okay, a lot of even manufacturing, industrial settings, you're going to have a lot of Class D, or Groups D. Lots of acetone, gas, and propane. Anything to do with making boats, for example, you're going to have acetone, you're going to have propane in your forklifts. Okay, so that's what some of that stuff means. Operating temperature code right here, having some focus problems. Operating temperature code T3C. Okay. T's. All right, T. T is temperature. C is your amount of temperature, 1 through 6. Okay, T1 is much hotter than T3, which is much hotter than T5. Now, T means maximum surface temperature that a product designed for use in a potentially hazardous atmosphere is allowed to operate at, okay? And that's relative to an ambient temperature range that is predetermined. Okay, it's always about ambient temperature. When things happen, the ambient temperature is definitely a variable. So I'll read that again. Maximum, we'll go over that part. And by the way, T3 is a maximum surface temperature of 320 degrees. C is a subsection within that range, okay? So your maximum surface temperature that a product designed for use in a potentially hazardous atmosphere is allowed to operate at, relative to a temperature range. And an example of a temperature range is, for example, minus, your T here, minus 20 degrees Celsius to, say, positive 40 degrees Celsius. That's an adequate temperature range there. That would be a realistic one too for this product here. Okay, so T3 is your maximum operating temperature, surface operating temperature. So this particular thing, 320 degrees, and that's recognized by these three entities here. Okay, not so sinister. and moving on. Output voltage, output ratings, 85 to 265 volts alternating current, 50 to 60 hertz. That's common in you get some 50s in Europe that I've seen. 60s, that's usually in the US at your frequency cycle. We all know what this stuff means here. Amps max at 30 degrees Celsius. And we got 240 volts max, 120 VA max. That's volt amps max. Okay, VA rating, volt amps rating, maximum per module, 1440 VA. Okay, that's volt amps. Okay, what does that mean? Make that make sense. Okay, does volts amps, for those outside the industry, if this is a DC current, it would convert DC here. If this was a DC circuit, that would convert 1-to-1 to watts. So you'd have 1440 watts. This is an AC circuit, so if we were in an AC circuit, you have to factor in there's a factoring number of 0 to 1. Okay, so whatever your factor number is, this could be anywhere between 0 and or 0.001 watts up to 1,440 watts is what that could convert to. So this number on its conversion to watts depends very much on whether or not it's AC or DC. Okay, if it's DC, it's going to be 1-to-1. If it's AC, your watts number is going to could be as big as that, but it could be smaller than that. Okay, down to almost 0. And Japan, that's a country. No, never mind, I'm just playing. We know where Japan is, I hope. So I hope that throws some light on all this mysterious stuff here. And it's not so mysterious once you break it down. And that's that. Your comments are welcome.